Hello and welcome to the 8th installment of the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast. My name is Mike Ashmore, and we've got I don't even know what to say about this one. This one probably doesn't need much hype or introduction, but let's do it anyway. Danny Burawa, covered him, as you see, over there in my diamond Trenton. A lot of people who are kind of newer followers for me, I guess I should intro it this way. A lot of people who are newer followers for me maybe don't know my background and how I kind of got back to Somerset. My first year covering Somerset was that credential over there. 2003. I was there from 03 to 07, more or less full time. I was in Trenton, kind of back and forth between there and Somerset, but mostly Trenton full time, if we're being honest, from 08 to when I took over for Ryan Dunleavy at the towards the end of the 13 season. I've been in Somerset ever since, back in Somerset full time and exclusively there. I got to know Danny back when we were in Trenton together. He was there for all of 13 and some of 14 as well, but I was long gone by then, a little bit 15 as well. But you guys will see. You'll see what just a great guy he is. And if you know the name, maybe you know it from the one outing that he had with the Yankees when he did get called up. And this one, and I say this at the end of the podcast too, this meant a lot for me to get to do, to show anyone who's checking this out, that guy is so much more than that outing and how that outing went. And career-wise, human being-wise, don't you dare summarize that guy by that outing. I won't have that. So without further ado, and without me babbling on anymore, in the longest intro in the history of the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast, we get you right to episode number 8 with former New York Yankees and Atlanta Braves pitcher, and of course Long Island Ducks and Bridgeport Bluefish as well, Danny Burawa. All right, guys, welcome back to the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast. This is another one that you guys have been looking forward to for quite some time, myself as well. Danny Burawa, former Yankees and Braves pitcher, is on the pod. Danny, it's great catching up with you, man. How you doing?
Hey, Mike, how's it going? I'm doing pretty well. Most of my life has come to a halt with the COVID craziness, but I'm doing my best to keep my sanity. So all things considered, I got my health, and in today's environment, that's a lot. So,
gotcha.
Can't complain.
You and I have known each other since the Trenton Thunder days, and I think we kind of bonded over hockey a little bit. So I'll ask you the most important question first of all. How does a Long Island kid grow up a Rangers fan?
So my earliest memories of hockey are actually, I must have been probably between 7, 8 years old. I grew up in Rocky Point, which is on the very, very north shore of Long Island. I came into about a probably third or fourth hand TV that was so old that I literally got channels by fixing tinfoil to the top of the antenna.
Oh boy!
And I would actually get a Hartford TV, and among the things that I can remember watching are the Drew Carey Show and Hartford Whalers games. And so that was actually my first memory in hockey. And then 93, 94, obviously an important year for the Rangers. That's probably about when I was, I was 6, 7 years old. That's about when I was old enough to start having formative visions of hockey. And I think I definitely can't remember them winning the cup, but I can definitely remember that they were a big deal. And then it's actually funny, my dad had this one friend, and I just didn't like the guy. He was kind of a dirtbag, and he would always wear an Islanders hat. And to me, the connection was just there that Islanders equal dirtbag team. And that connection never went away. So to me, if you were a man of class, you liked the Rangers, and if you were a dirtbag, you liked the Islanders.
Okay, so fun, quick little story is my dad did not let me watch Game 7 of the 1994 Cup Final. My grades sucked. I only got to watch a certain amount of games every week. I used up all my games, so I never got to see that live. I was 11 and devastated that I didn't get to see that live. So that was
wow.
Tough. Yes.
Wow.
So
it's on YouTube. We
yes.
both have plenty of time, so treat yourself to a viewing.
Yes. Now is as good a time as any to do that. So we won't get into you boat racing me in the NHL video games back in the day. We don't need to talk about that. But You kind of, I guess, starting off at Suffolk County and getting to St. John's. I guess what was that process like to get you over there? Kind of start talking a little baseball here.
So for me personally, I would say I was kind of somewhere between a late bloomer and just a guy who wasn't quite sure what he wanted from baseball or was capable of in baseball. I was a good Long Island high school pitcher, as far as throwing harder than most people. I was probably 88, 90, touching 91 my senior year, which is firmly above average for Long Island baseball. Grades were terrible. I was out of shape. I was much more interested in skateboarding than I was baseball. So basically, it's so crazy to me how much I know about how recruiting processes are now and how early it can start. And what I would have, in hindsight, what I would have done if I'd known what I know now about how recruiting works. But basically, it was May of my senior year of high school, maybe a little early, probably April. My high school coach comes up to me and goes, like, Danny, what do you want? And I go, well, I really don't know. And I was like, all I knew was Stony Brook was a Division I school nearby. I said, Stony Brook would be great. That'd be cool because, I really want to go D1. I knew so little about college baseball. I was just, that's it, D1. I want to go D1.
Sure.
He says, okay, let me talk to the guy. Had a meeting with the head coach at the time. My grades were not up to par. Like I said, I didn't really have my head on straight. Made a deal with the guy at Stony Brook where if all I had to do was go to Suffolk County Community College, take 4 courses, and all I had to do was get a 2.5 GPA. That's really not asking a lot, and I would have had a scholarship to Stony Brook. I went to Suffolk County Community College, failed statistics, and did not go to Stony Brook. So I ended up playing baseball. Still very out of shape, not really getting any better. Come back to Suffolk in the fall. Velocity goes up a little bit just by chance. Now I'm 93, 94, which is for that level also firmly above average.
Yeah.
We had gotten very lucky. It was actually kind of a perfect storm of circumstances. And like I said, I consider myself to be a late bloomer, but I wouldn't trade my baseball journey for anything because it was perfect for me, and I just kind of kept finding myself in the right place at the right time. We had at St. John's probably the first guy ever to go, or at Suffolk, I should say, go to a big Division I program, which is this guy, Bruce Kern, who I actually didn't like him at all when we first met. We clashed heads when we got to Suffolk. He took things very seriously. I didn't take things seriously enough. He is now one of my best friends. He is quick to say that I owe him everything good that ever happened in my life, which is, his words, but they're probably true. But we were in each other's wedding party, so we've mended that fence. But he went to St. John's. The year before, St. John's had 6 guys drafted in the late rounds. Every single one of them signed, and they were just sitting on 5 dead scholarships. The coach at St. John's asked Bruce, he said, you got anyone else good over there? They go, well, we got this kid Burawa. He throws hard, but he's an idiot. The pitching coach at St. John's checks me out. I just happened to be throwing 93, 94 that day. He works some magic. I get admitted on the skin of my teeth, and they were able to give me a scholarship to redshirt my sophomore year. I find myself in a super competitive environment. I kind of was the start of going like, okay, you backed into a great situation. What are you going to do now? Met the right people. People took me under their wing and showed me how to work hard. And being away from home and living in Queens, I had nothing to do but work hard, go to the gym, go to City Hall, and I just kind of started putting things together as a product of the environment, and really bloomed, I would say, between my sophomore and junior years.
Yeah, your actual sample size at St. John's was pretty small. So what was that process like of kind of getting scouts there and kind of getting to the point where you were going to get drafted? I saw a lot of old scouting reports where people thought maybe second round, third round, fourth round, you ended up going in the 12th. I guess, what was that whole process like leading up to that draft in terms of what the attention was like on you?
So definitely small sample size. I think I threw a total of 8 innings my first 2 college years between being hurt at Suffolk and redshirting my sophomore year. Really, pretty funny. Like I said, I was always firmly above average velocity. Really, the first great opportunity I got was to go play with the Madison Mallards in the Northwoods League, which is, in my opinion, the second best summer baseball league there is. It's right behind the Cape, which I also got a chance to play in.
Yeah.
I go away. I start. Actually got into running, not even for baseball, really, just because I was just tired of being the chubby kid in college. Dropped 40 pounds in 2 months, and literally, when I went away to Madison, the hardest I'd ever thrown was 94 miles per hour that I knew of. I'm in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and literally it just happened one day. I'm throwing 97, 98. It literally just happened one day.
Do you feel that difference? Do you feel that difference, or are you just looking at the guns, or do you actually physically feel that?
Part of me was like, wow, the ball's flying out of my hand today, and part of me is like, most stadium guns are juiced. You can't really trust them, but I had a scout in attendance confirm it for me. So yeah, I hit 98 before I ever hit 95, 96, or 97. So literally just happened one day. Seeing 98, you go, whoa, I probably got something here, and I might want to take it very seriously. Went back in the fall, was a whole new person. I went from on academic probation to making the dean's list my junior year of college. Just kind of really put everything together in preparation for the draft process. And, I hardly ever threw. I think I threw 23 innings at St. John's. I was mostly a traditional 3-out closer. So I think it was definitely difficult for scouts to put a tag on me. I really don't know. I had known Cesar Prescott, the Yankee scout, since high school. He had always kept an eye on me, and I think he's just such a passionate guy who believes in everyone in his area. I think he must have seen me on a good day and really been in someone's ear with the Yankees to trust that what he had seen was true.
Yeah. So you grew up a Yankees fan. You get that call that they take you. What is that moment like?
Pretty crazy. I was actually on the bus with my St. John's teammates on our way home from the Charlottesville Regional. We had put together a nice run there. We took UVA, the number 1 ranked team in the country, to a decisive game. We actually beat them in the first game, took them to a winner-take-all game. They beat us. So the season had just ended, and we were on the bus on the way home. My agent actually called. So, I was going through the same thing that you just mentioned, where, you're a 21-year-old kid, you're going to read the internet. Oh, second round. Oh, that's big money right there. Second round. That's crazy. Then my agent calls me in the 4th. Am I snitching on college kids right now? Probably not. My agent, we'll call him the advisor for now, but he did a lot of agenting. He calls me and goes, the Cardinals want to take you here in the 4th. And I go, oh, that's pretty good. He goes, I'm telling them no. I go, wait, what?
Whoa.
He said, just trust me. I said, you're telling me that you don't want me to get drafted in the 4th round. He goes, no, they're not going to pay you enough. I go, okay, sounds like they want to pay me a lot. And I actually called my dad and go, yeah, the Cardinals want to take me in the 4th for slot. And Mike said, no, Mike is my agent. My God goes, are you crazy? You know how much money that is? And I go, I don't know. Mike says he knows what he's doing. I ended up making twice as much going in the 12th round as I would have in the 4th. So my agent did, in fact, know what he was doing.
Yes.
Made me sweat it out for 2 months, but he definitely knew what he was doing.
So get drafted by the Yankees, go into their system right away. You're flying through their system. I think you kind of know where this is headed. 2012, I guess. What are the range of emotions where I think you got your first big league spring training that year, and then you end up missing basically the entire year. What are, I guess, really what are the range of emotions kind of going through those highs and those lows like that?
I was very excited about going to Double A. I was like, okay, this is great. Once you make it to Double A, then you can things can happen quick. If you do well in Double A, that's in my experience, the jump between High A and Double A is the biggest there is, and I hyped myself up for it. And going to camp after one full season, I kind of looked around and saw there weren't a lot of guys doing that, and so felt like I must have impressed the right kind of people.
Yeah, and you were pitching well in that spring training too.
Yeah, I was. Maybe I was so young I didn't appreciate the opportunity, or just didn't realize how rare the opportunity in front of me was. When you get to even a major league spring training, those innings are hard to come by. Guys are fighting for those innings because that's their opportunity to show that they have what it takes to make it to the majors. So the fact that they were giving me innings at 22 years old, no experience above High A, definitely speaks to what they thought of me at the time. Literally, I came in to finish a game against the Braves. I had never even heard of an oblique before. I had no clue what an oblique was. Just on one pitch, it felt like a Mike Tyson punch in the ribs. And I looked over into the bullpen, and I saw nothing but Major League vets as the backups. And I go, well, I'm finishing this game. I don't care how bad it hurts. Kept pitching, finished the game. After the game, go, my side doesn't feel so good. They do some testing, and it turns out I had a pretty significant tear. Emotional-wise, it was, like I said, I'd never even heard of an oblique before. Just a pitching injury from the areas you're putting torque on your body.
Yeah.
Pretty simple to happen. I remember being bummed. Couldn't believe that it was going to take 2 months to be back to be back. And then if I had known what things were really going to be like, I would have gladly signed up for 2 months. But the whole injury thing was crazy. Just one crazy thing after another.
Yeah, there's a story that you posted on Instagram, and it kind of got some headlines when you did about Mariano Rivera and kind of his reaction to kind of consoling you in there. For people who don't know that, could you share that for us?
Yeah, sure. So right after it had happened, I'll tell you two stories that are both just what a crazy place Yankees spring training. My first day, I'm getting I had gotten the test. The MRI showed tear. They had an away game and a early day. So I was there getting treatment. They let me get treatment over at Steinbrenner. They didn't send me back to Hines right away. I was getting treatment, and I'm in one bed, and who's laying across in the bed across from me is Yogi Berra, and that's to this day the most starstruck I've ever been in my life. So I go, this is like, what kind of right choices did I make in my life that I'm sitting here in the same room as Yogi Berra? Then go back to the locker room, and it's literally just me. Take a shower, get my stuff on. I see it's just Mariano. He's I forget why. I think he maybe did a photo shoot or something that day, that he was the only one left behind. Putting my head down. Next thing I know, he's standing over me, sits down right in the chair next to me. It's not even like he was like, hey, why are you here? Or like, what happened? He's like, hey, I'm so sorry you got hurt. He told me a story about how when he was younger, he got hurt, and how you can't let these things get you down, and it's part of baseball, and how when he first came up, he was a starter, and things didn't go well as a starter, and even though things might seem bleak, or that, just never get down on yourself, because baseball is, you're playing the long game, and things that are short-term setbacks, just never let them ruin what could be. Like always be looking forward into the future. And it was just so crazy. The guy was my hero, and he for sure didn't have to do that to some kid in high A. And there's literally just me and him, and that's just I just like pointing out the character of some of these guys. Some of these, with my experience in baseball, a lot of guys look at athletes as heroes because of their athletic abilities, but I just think it's so worth pointing out the graciousness and personalities of some of these people as well. They're just special humans in every way possible, and it's just people who don't need to be so kind and generous and do so because it's part of their character. It's just, in my opinion, a nice shout out to what kind of human beings they are, not just athletes.
Yeah, so I remember in my time kind of getting to cover the Yankees off and on, there would be times where Yogi would be in that clubhouse, and I would have no problem going up to Jeter or Mo or any of these guys, but I never had the balls to go within 100 feet of Yogi. So when you're in that room with him, are you able to talk to him at all? Are you able to strike up a conversation? You just kind of let him be? I guess, how does that go?
He looked like he was just kind of chilling. He looked like he was kind of about to take a nap, so I left him alone. I think he looked up at me and was like, "What happened?" And I was like, "Oh, I hurt myself." He goes, "Oh, okay." And that was really the end of that. Yeah, I'm not. It was just crazy to me to be in the same room as him. I didn't want to press the issue too much.
Yeah. Trenton, I guess you get there in 13. Finally, you got back in the fall league in 2012, but ultimately you get back to full season ball in 13 with Trenton. You talked about kind of the adjustment from high A to double A, and especially missing a year. Was that a difficult transition at first to get back to that? Does the fall league help with that? I guess, what is that process like to finally make that jump?
So both times, what would you say your rating here on the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast is? PG-13?
We can we can bleep anything that's needed to be bleeped, so.
Well, this one's just a donkey, but both times I went to the fall league, I got my ass kicked. And coming back after 2012, being hurt all year, going there, really pitching like garbage, not fully trusting my body. The next spring training was definitely a slow start. Just not really sure what to expect from myself. I think I did start slow in spring training, and then kind of figured it out in the last week or so and took that momentum into Trenton and actually pretty much came out firing my first couple of months there.
Yeah, it seemed like they kind of took it slow with you. I guess I don't know if that was, the injury or whatever, but it took you really 2.5 years in the minors to finally get that call. I guess, did that surprise you at all that, your momentum had kind of been held up that much?
I definitely never expected to miss a full year in 2012. There was actually 3 different health things that came up. I tore the oblique. As my oblique was getting better, I was at the beach, and no one told me that when you go to clear water, you have to wear shoes in underneath the bridge because there's shale on all the rocks. And then I ended up getting stitches in both of my feet.
Oh.
And then as that was getting better, I had this crazy experience where my first rehab game, I thought I tore my other oblique, and to this day, I'm not sure what happened. I went to one doctor who told me I broke my rib, and then went to another doctor that told me I had a tumor growing out of my rib. What's the word? Carcinoid melanoma, I believe is the word, or something like that. Basically, it was. I hear. I had to go. They sent me to a cancer doctor because they were scared I was growing a cancerous tumor. Yeah, I got cleared of that. That was definitely a scary day, though. They said, okay, we don't know what's wrong. Take 2 weeks and then come get more testing. After 2 weeks, the doctor who thought I broke my rib now thought I had a tumor, and the doctor who thought I had a tumor now thought I broke my rib. So no one knew what was going on. I just knew I couldn't lift my arm above my shoulder. They said, okay, we don't know what to do. If we treat it like a fracture, it's going to be very invasive because it's on the inside of the rib. Let's just take another couple of weeks and then try it again. And then I waited another couple of weeks towards September, Just went out there, had about 10 Advil my first day, and then thankfully it just kind of went away. I still don't know what it was, but that was the reason the 2-month injury turned into a whole year, is because I hurt something on the right side of me, and I still don't know what.
Jeez. So you grind back Trenton for a year and a half, Scranton for a year and a half, June 21st, 2015. A lot of people on the outside looking in are probably not going to think this is the best day for you, but there's obviously a lot of positives to it as well. I guess when you think back to that day, what comes to mind?
A lot. I mean, I would say the prevailing memory for me is, I'm going to tell a boring story real quick, but it sets up the whole experience. I was in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania the night before, and we had a night game, and I was just bored, and I had noticed there was a Sprint store across the street. And I said, you know what, I'm due for a new phone. Let's just go get a new phone. I'm bored. So I went across the street, got a new phone, and they said, okay, you got to wait about an hour for the towers to connect, but, it'll happen. I said, okay. So I go to the game. This is taking a long time. My phone's not connecting to the towers, so I have no cell phone at all. My cell phone is down. Pitch that day. Come back after the game. I was getting ready to go out with some friends, and my hotel phone room rings, and it's Dave Miley. And he goes, Danny, what are you doing? Why aren't you answering your phone? And I go, oh, I don't have a phone right now. My cell phone's been disconnected all day. And so the actual call to the majors came on my hotel phone at midnight, because they had been trying to reach my cell phone, and they were not able to because I didn't have a phone at the time. But for me, the prevailing memory is the phone call to my parents, because June 21st was Father's Day.
Yep.
And definitely the most vivid memory to me is borrowing Jaron Long's cell phone, calling my parents and going, hey, Dad, what do you got plans for Father's Day? And he goes, no, not really. And I go, well, I think you got plans now. And telling them I was getting called up on Father's Day, and we all grew up huge Yankee fans. That's like I said, that's the most vivid memory to me. Other than that, barely slept, super early ride in. The rest of the day is a blur.
Yeah. Have you watched the outing back? Do you think about that outing at all? Do you play it back in your mind at all?
Sometimes, yes. I definitely have seen it before, and in my mind, when I'm out there on the mound, I definitely remember getting out there and going, oh, this kind of reminds me of Steinbrenner in Tampa, because I was wondering what the visuals would be like.
Yeah. Because
it was an afternoon game, it literally felt just exactly like a spring training game to me. In my mind, I was trying to be as calm as I can, and then I looked at the replays, and I am rushing around the mound. I'm going 1,000 miles per hour, walking in circles, walking halfway to home plate to get the ball. Not at all what I thought I was doing. So definitely, even if I didn't want them to be there, some subconscious nerves, definitely a factor.
Yeah. So that outing goes the way it goes. You get sent down. Would you get sent down immediately after you get sent down the next day? I guess, how does that go?
Immediately after the game, and actually a good bit of trivia. So I got called up I took Brian Mitchell's place on the roster, who had just thrown 3 innings and extra innings the night before.
Yep.
He wore number 65. They send him down, give me number 65, send me down, and they give, I think it was Diego Moreno, number 65, on a Monday. So on a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, the Yankees had 3 different players wear number 65.
Jeez. Wow. All right. So you get set down immediately after then. Are you thinking at the time, it's one, I guess, crappy outing, there's really no getting around it. Was it one crappy outing, I'll get another chance with the Yankees? Are you thinking, I blew my chance with the Yankees? I guess, what is the mindset? Because ultimately, the Yankees DFA'd you not too much later after that.
I didn't think I blew my chance, but I knew with just the way things go, I would have to hit the ground running back. It's obviously never good to make it to the level and put on just about as bad as an impression as you can, because in that, it's not exactly how I pictured it, but in that moment, my job was to just clear innings, just save the bullpen. That's what they needed me to do. Giving 2/3 of an inning, I did not do my job on that day, so definitely don't want to make such a bad impression. I didn't think it would be my last one, but I was paying close enough attention to the roster that I definitely, it was on my brain that a DFA was a possibility, just because the Yankees were so into that roster shuffle. They actually sent me to Double A and let me start a few games. I'm thinking maybe try to get me more accustomed to a long relief role. That didn't really pan out either. I wouldn't say I thought that would be my only chance, but it's definitely, I was pretty accepting that they're very next man up, and I would have to hit the ground running when I got back in order to get my name back out there, and I really did, and I kind of faltered back at AAA as well.
Yeah. That process between getting designated and getting claimed, I think it was like 8 or 9 days for you. What is that like, where there's just that waiting process? Because obviously, I'm never going to go through that. Most people listening to this are never going to go through that. So for someone who has gone through that and kind of wondering what that next step is going to be, what is that week or so like?
It's obviously the first day driving home. It's tough in a different way in that you never expect to be sent home. It's it would have. I remember going to the stadium in Trenton. Telling them that I just got the call that I got DFA'd, and I go, all right, well, what do I do now? And they're like, I guess if you want to throw, you can, but you're not really part of the organization right now, so I guess go home. And luckily for me, that's a 90-minute drive.
Right.
So I go home and I go, okay, what is this process? How does this process work out? And how long can I be sitting here? Obviously, I'm talking to my agent, going, come on, call someone, tell someone, find me someone, find someone who likes me. That was, I didn't expect it to take, I think the most it can take is 9 or 10 days, and I think I took all 9 of them. I just remember, obviously, my parents are big Dan Burawa fans, and they said, we hate the Yankees. We don't want to be Yankees anymore. And when my agent called me and told me that Atlanta was going to claim me, that my parents were probably as excited as hearing about my big league debut. They were just very excited for me to get a new opportunity and just see what things were like elsewhere. So the waiting game kind of stung. I would throw and then play golf. Did that about 9 days in a row. But getting the call of getting claimed was the most. It just felt like so much weight lifted off my shoulder, and because if you don't go claimed, you have no leverage to make it back. There's no reason that they would call you back. I would have to go out there and throw 10 scoreless innings over the month of August in order to give myself even a chance, and even then, they'd have to like me so much that they'd be willing to take someone else off the 40-man. So sticking on a 40-man is huge. So it was just an incredible feeling being told you got claimed.
Braves do claim you August 14th. You go down to AAA, pitch your ass off there. September call-up. I'm curious about that first big league outing with them, because you shoved in that one. It was 2 innings, 4 strikeouts. So I'm curious, was the outing with the Yankees, was that lingering in your mind at all? Were you worried about a repeat of that? Because so much of this is mental, I guess. How do you block that out when you're kind of taking this new opportunity?
So that day is definitely still very vivid in my head. At Turner Field, the bullpen mound, so home plate, basically when you throw from the bullpen mound, a terrible throw would go out on the field. So they call, tell me I got the 8th, and I'm just sitting there going, don't throw one onto the field. Don't throw one onto the field. I definitely remember getting through the bullpen gates and having about the worst thought you could ever have, which is, oh man, if that happens again, then you really just don't belong here. And then going, I definitely remember laughing at myself and going, that's just about the worst thought you could ever have. What really saved me was I get to the mound at Turner. AJ Pierzynski's catching me, and I go, oh, I've heard stories about this guy. I better hit this guy in the glove. But more so than that, when I got to the mound, so as a pitcher, I've tried to theorize what it is that makes some mounds feel close and some mounds feel far. I can tell you that the mound at Yankee Stadium felt about 70 feet away. The mound at Trenton feels about 58 feet away. I would say it's a pretty confident mound. The mound at New Britain feels about 52 feet away because it's straight uphill. But I get to the mound, and I literally did a double take because I go, there's no way this mound is regulation. I feel like the second the ball leaves my hand, it's in the catcher's glove, which is the most confidence-bringing feeling a pitcher could ever have. Like, I literally said, like, it's not, I remember thinking, this isn't fair for the hitters. They don't have enough time to react. So, having such a confidence boost like that is definitely a good setup to perform well. And, yeah, like I said, that day, my pitching was always, I think my numbers would show my pitching is pretty inconsistent. That might have been the best I pitched at any level ever, and it just happened to be a very important game to me where I was finally getting another chance. So pretty grateful for that. It was just a day where I had my best control of my best stuff. And, very, very, very good day.
I think the last big league thing I would have for you is just kind of later that month you get to pitch at Citi Field. And obviously it's not Yankee Stadium, grew up a Yankees fan, all that stuff, but to be a little bit more settled in the big leagues and kind of have some friends and family there who could watch you. And obviously you pitched well. It was a short outing, but you pitched well. Was there any meaning to that for you?
For sure. When I transferred into St. John's, so I transferred there my sophomore year and redshirted. But we at St. John's actually played the first ever game at Citi Field against Georgetown. I like to believe I threw the first ever bullpen at Citi Field. And just for me, it was this super cool dynamic of just Queens baseball. And I definitely tweeted about it. The drive from Flushing to Fresh Meadows is about 7 miles, and it took me 5 years to make it, but it was just an incredible experience. Definitely meant a lot. I actually, growing up, my godfather had season tickets to Shea. So I grew up a Yankee fan, but I actually went to a lot more games at Shea than I ever did at Yankee Stadium. So definitely pitching in that field, and my parents getting to be at that one, and my parents getting to come to a game where I did well, definitely meant a lot to me. But yeah, even though it's just one batter, that was the one where after my big league debut, I got a lot of texts before the game from friends. Not too many, a lot of people going, "Oh, it's okay," blah 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 blah. After that game was the one where it's just like, I saw you on TV. That was so cool. Oh my goodness. I get tagged in a bunch of, all my friends back home taking photos of me and stuff like that. That was the one where I finally felt like I had made it and had the full support of the community behind me.
That's awesome. So get back with the Braves in 2016 and their organization, and things that didn't really go your way. And the last interview that you and I did was in 2016. I kind of want to read you a quote that you told me at that time about your time with the Braves in that year. Mechanical problems became mental problems. No one in the Braves organization was really able to get through to me, and it kind of snowballed where the Braves and I both realized it wasn't working out. I guess being kind of further removed from that situation, do you still kind of feel that way about the way things ended there?
Yeah. I mean, that's literally exactly the way I see it. And it's, I'm not big for looking back on what could have been. Though I will say it drives me a little crazy that right at that time, some organizations were switching to the TrackMan and Edgertronic data, slow motion cameras,
Yep.
capturing technology in both ends. I don't want to kick myself in the butt too much, but I definitely feel that if I had just had access to something like that, if I had been smart enough to track someone down who had that information, at that time, I could have corrected things. It just so happened I was in an organization that was still a couple of years away from that. Definitely think if I was with the Yankees, they would have straightened things out. Because I look at videos you took of me pitching, and I don't even recognize that guy. The mechanics, my arm angle, my timing, I can't believe I ever thought that was a good way to throw. And there was just this big disconnect between what I wanted to accomplish and what my body was doing. I figured you'd ask me something about that, and if I had to compare my first year in the Atlantic League, it would be the scene in Space Jam where they all feel like they've had their powers taken from them. Where nothing happened. They seem fine. They're getting checked out by the doctor, and their powers had been taken from them. That's how I felt. I felt like I hadn't lost anything, that it had been taken from me.
So there's a second half of that quote I want to read you too. It's pitching has never come that easy to me, if I'm going to be completely honest. I'm very mechanical. The downside of a fastball that moves a lot is that it takes a little more to get it over the plate. I guess was some of that just trying to still learning how to harness that movement, or what? I guess what was that kind of, because obviously that duck stretch wasn't some of your best work there either. So I guess what was kind of causing some of that? Do you think, was it the mental, the mechanical, was it both?
Definitely both. As far as the mechanical goes, so people, my whole life, some of my earliest pitching memories are my 13-year-old baseball coach. When I was 13, going, "You got to get your arm up, elbow above the shoulder, get your arm up, get your arm up." I've always been fighting a sidearm angle. But I would hate when people would call me a sidearmer. I didn't see myself that way, but a lot of people called me a sidearmer, low three-quarter. I actually did. Did a job through this baseball academy I worked at, where I got hooked up to mocap sensors and did mechanic impersonations for a video game for I think it was RBI baseball. So if you play the new RBI baseball, a lot of the pitchers, I did their mechanics. But anyway, one of the guys working there had access to my spring training videos with the Yankees, and I was more or less an over-the-top pitcher. When I came back to the Braves in the Atlantic League, I was a true sideline pitcher. Like I said, if I had still been with the Yankees or had known how to use data to correct mechanics, I never would have let my arm drop that far. So I definitely think it was a mechanical thing, and then it turned mental in that I felt like it shouldn't have been that hard to correct, and yet it didn't seem like anyone was that interested in trying. I definitely felt like I was screaming into a well, and then no one there really seemed too interested in trying to get on the same page with me. I definitely felt very on my own, and it's a very isolating feeling, knowing physically you should still be capable of performing at a high level, and your body just won't listen.
Yeah, is there, I guess, kind of on the mental side of things, 13 to 14, I saw you when you were filthy, shoving Double-A, so I always knew what you were capable of. Was there somewhat of a shock factor in being in indie ball that soon after being in the big leagues too? Because I know from talking to a lot of guys, that's kind of a difficult hurdle for some guys to get over. Was that a factor for you, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty, like you said, once you get to the other side and you can remove your ego from situations, you kind of see things for how they really are in the business side of baseball. In my mind, I couldn't get away from the Braves fast enough, because all it would take is one organization that knew how to use technology, and they would take the chance chance on me and believe in my arm strength, and they too would know that it wouldn't be that hard to correct, and they were going to have a big leaguer on their hands for next to nothing. That never happened. My agent stopped answering his phone.
Wow.
I got released right around the time of the draft, and that meant every organization just had 40 new guys, and they weren't really interested in taking on any projects. Like I said, if I could go do things differently, I wouldn't have signed with the Ducks. Not anything. I love the Ducks. I love Mike Pfaff. It was tough to get my ego out of the way there because I felt like I was capable of more. What I would have done is what David Carpenter did, which is not sign and just go to a lab and move to a place that has a pitching lab and just get yourself right. No, the phone never rang. No one wanted to sign me. I'm sitting at home. Mike Bass going, all right, you ready to pitch now? I said, all right, well, let's try this. And like I said, it's definitely hurt the ego a little bit, but having Bruce Kern, who's one of my best friends, be on that team definitely helped. Because even if I wasn't, even if I felt like I was, my career was headed the wrong way, having him there to stop me from taking, really being down on myself definitely helped a lot. And it was just great to be his teammate again.
Yeah, but we're skipping ahead a few steps here. There's still some stuff I want to get to, but you mentioned kind of Carpenter going to the lab and going to Driveline and getting some stuff done. I mean, you're still only 31 years old. Are you completely past pitching? Is there a thought to, especially after talking about all this, is there a thought to maybe give it another run or maybe change some things? I guess what's kind of your mindset right now in terms of where you're at baseball-wise?
So I never technically retired from baseball, but so I never this will be my first time ever telling this story out loud, but so I finished up with the Ducks, come back home, take some time off, ramp up, tell myself, all right, one more off season, everything you got. Around January, I get it in my head, or late December, I get it in my head that I need to be ready to throw bullpens in January because I want to get signed. So I'm still operating under the assumption that I can latch on with an organization if I just get myself right. Mm-hmm. I was doing a weighted ball drill. Did it the complete wrong way. I taught myself how to do them. I was super jacked up this day. I tried to do a lot more than my body wanted to do. Lean back with a big weighted ball in my shoulder. Just felt the whole thing pop out of its socket. But I had the invite to Team Israel the month after that, or 2 months after that, actually.
World Baseball Classic.
So basically I was left with the choice of go see a doctor, find out what happened, or just keep pitching, go to Asia. Maybe this isn't as serious as you think it is. Go try and figure it out. So I go away. I take the Team Israel trip with a really shoulder not attached to the rest of my arm. Had one good game, one bad game.
Yep.
Signed with Bridgeport. I never saw a doctor. At one point, I got a cortisone shot into my shoulder. But basically, my arm's completely done. I got by in Bridgeport on a very, very steady diet of Voltaren. Asked for my release from Bridgeport. Mike Pfaff calls me up. He goes, all right, you want to pitch? You still want to pitch? And I go, yeah, why not? Failed my physical with the Ducks. That was really it. I knew I was done there. So I am still 31. I sell cars now. The managers there tell me that whenever I'm ready to get surgery, they'll stake the whole thing and pay for me to do the surgery and the rehab. So I have standing offers if I ever really feel like giving it a try. But that is not on my plans right now.
When was the last time you picked up a ball?
I threw. So, like I said, I pitched an independent ball with a very, very messed up shoulder.
Yes.
but it spurred what I would do next, because playing for Team Israel, even though my arm was shot and I hadn't been good at pitching in years, was the most fun experience I ever had playing baseball, and it just made me love baseball again. It kind of helped me to get over that I physically couldn't do what I was used to doing and just enjoy myself. And it just made me like baseball again. And even though I pitched terribly at Bridgeport and was in horrible pain every day, I had a great time doing it, which is a nice way to go out. But I got sidetracked. What was the question again?
last time you picked up a ball.
Oh, anyway, this went back to school, got a degree in psychology, got an offer to coach in the Hamptons Collegiate Baseball League with Bruce Kern as the manager. Picked up a ball one day, kind of realized that if I get my adrenaline going, I could still throw. Threw about a 40-pitch bullpen to one of my catchers, starting from about 20 feet away, dealing with the pain and just saying, all right, I'm going to throw this one as hard as I can and deal with it. Threw about a 40-pitch bullpen and had to ice my arm every day for a week, and that was the last time I did that. So I threw one bullpen, got it up to 82 miles per hour, and then was in such horrible pain for about a week straight that I didn't even try doing it again.
I didn't really expect this to go this route, but I guess I do have one more question on that. Would you seriously consider getting the surgery done to, give it another chance?
It's tough to say. Would I, if I had a pause button where I could wouldn't have to worry about paying bills. I mean, I don't have any. I'm recently married. We don't have any children yet, so if there was ever a time to do it, this would be it. I have kind of semi-jokingly asked, I went from the age of 26 to 31 without health insurance. I now have health insurance, so I have kind of half-heartedly jokingly asked my wife to get me into an MRI tube. So with all this going on, it's more of a 1/8 of a joke, or 99% of a joke.
Yeah.
If I could get into an MRI tube, and the doctor, I mean, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I know it's surgical because I hurt myself in 2016, and it hurts horribly to throw a baseball. So there's nothing that time will heal, because I went about 3 years between throwing, and when I was doing lessons, tried to fire it back up like I was getting ready for spring training, and then made it about 4 throws in before I realized whatever was hurting me is still hurting me.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, it definitely is going to need surgery to correct. But if I get into an MRI tube and the guy says, you could throw in 8 months, I expect a lot of myself and believe myself capable of a lot of things. I could see a scenario where I wake up super early, take rehab very seriously, and then, my job, I work 12 to 9, so I would have all the mornings to do it. So is that super theoretical with time not on my side? Yes. Have I completely ruled it out? No, sometimes I daydream about it.
Okay. I feel like your wife might be a little bit pissed off at me for putting this idea back in your head, but...
No, she knows my feelings. My life is definitely a lot more simple now than it was when I was playing baseball, but I think I'm much more content with things the way they are now. Sometimes I'll look at videos of me pitching from when I was, among the best, and it's just, there's a disconnect there where it's like, I can't believe I was that guy, but also sometimes it's like, maybe I could still be that guy. Probably pipe dreams. I know if I ever did get into an MRI tube and had the surgery, I would attack this thing at about 57,000%. Because I've been sitting around for so long, I definitely wouldn't have it. But like I said, I got a pretty good thing going. Recently married, make a pretty good living doing what I'm doing. So I'm not in a rush to. But like I said, I haven't completely written it off.
Okay. The one thing I did kind of want to circle back to, and you mentioned it, was the World Baseball Classic. You said it was one of the best experiences of your career. I guess when you do think back to that time, what are some of the things that stand out that made that experience so good for you?
So when you are, like I said, once you remove yourself from baseball, from professional cutthroat baseball, remove yourself from your organization because it's tough to be. I wouldn't trade my minor league experience for anything, and there's nothing else. There's nothing like being a kid in your 20s pursuing your dream. But for sure, if you get too deep into what it is exactly you're doing, you can kind of start to feel like cattle, and you can kind of see how many eggs you have to put into one basket, and there's a 99% chance that it's going to blow up in your face eventually. That can be a tough thing to deal with while you're trying to do it. With Team Israel and the World Baseball Classic, it was nothing like that. There was no organization. There was no... you wonder how the decision makers really feel about you. There's no... green dots, red dots. There's just go out there, have fun, play baseball. And it was just was so refreshing to just say, all right, go have fun. No one expects a lot of us. Maybe we'll do good. And it just so happened that we did. We went on a great run. We won a bunch of great games. I got to travel. The money I made from our high finish paid for the engagement ring for my wife. So it's just... really couldn't have, as far as last hurrahs go, very grateful for that experience. And it just made me love baseball again. It really did. I was super down on baseball after how quickly things fell apart in 2016, that getting to do that as my last act was for sure a great way to go out.
I think the last thing that I would have for you, and I apologize for keeping you on here for so damn long, but I think the last thing I have for you is just once the playing days are over, at least temporarily, as we kind of talked about, when the playing days are over, how long does it kind of take to get back on your feet and find a new gig? I guess what was that kind of process like? It seems like you're really happy with everything now too, so that's good. But I guess what is that whole kind of transition like to life after baseball, at least for now?
So basically from being super down on myself in 2016, from experiencing really basically the yips and performance anxiety to a serious degree, I knew that I want to be involved in baseball, but I've never been very interested in being a straight pitching coach or anything like that. I feel like there's a lot of guys who could do that. Having been through such a difficult experience with anxiety and for mental related issues, I had the idea to why not go to school. They're going to pay for my degree. Why don't you become that guy? Why don't you be the person that you wish you could have talked to when things were spiraling out of control? And so that's what I resolved to do. I retired. Well, I didn't retire. I kind of walked away in May. September of that year, I was in classes. A year and a half later, I had a psychology degree. And it's still, that is more of a realistic way for me to get back into baseball than getting my shoulder surgically corrected. I want to be a mental performance coach. I want to kind of be a hybrid between the super data-driven way baseball is now and the mental tricks your brain can play on you while you're trying to perform at such a high level, and the ability to disregard all of the static that constantly surrounds you as a young prospect or as a person on a big stage is it's just like weightlifting is a skill that you got to get a little bit better at every day. Just like pitching is a skill you got to get a little bit better at every day. Mental performance is the same thing. It's not really a you have it or you don't kind of thing. It's can be worked on. You have the ability to slow your thoughts down. For sure, it's an uneven playing field, and for a lot of people, it's going to be more difficult than others. But I just am super interested in taking a new perspective on that part of the game. So, like I said, walked away in May, had a degree in psychology by next May, working on the master's, although I'm taking a year to kind of refill the piggy bank before I go back for that.
Yeah, I don't blame you there, man. But it's good to see you finding some success after the playing days are again at least temporarily over. It was really important for me to get to do this with you too, because I got to know you fairly well back in the Trenton days, and I know a lot of people only, when they hear your name, they only think about that outing, and I wanted to show people that you're so much more than that, and your career has gone so many more places than that. So it's an honor to call you a friend, man. It's been fun to get to chat and catch up with you, and I really, really, really do appreciate you taking this much time for me, Danny.
Yeah, no problem. And I actually have a couple of thank yous for you that I made sure I wanted to point out. The first thank you is for introducing me to Nicole, who is an angel, and who still to this day hooked me and my wife up. She made my Ranger game experiences incredible.
Nicole Melfi, she's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely owe you a big thank you for introducing me to her, because she has she has made, like I said, I love going to Ranger games, and she has made my Ranger game going experience about 1,000 times better. And then I owe you another thank you, because even though I never said it out loud, the day of that major league outing, there were for sure a lot of clowns in my mentions on Twitter, back when I took Twitter much more seriously than I do now, trying to get a cheap word in. And I will never forget that there was a couple of trolls in particular really trying to get to me, and you were right there defending me. You were probably the most vocal person of all. And I have a pretty hardcore don't feed the trolls policy, but it is tough to do it when you're hurting. And I always wanted to tell you that I really appreciate you having my back there. It's like I said, that was 5 years in the past, but I haven't forgotten, and I do really appreciate that, Mike.
Well, we made it 8 episodes before you almost got me to cry, so I appreciate that, Danny. But thanks for letting me know that, man. I appreciate that. I hope, however, you want things to work out in the future, they do. And again, man, thank you so much for the kind words and for giving me so much of your time, both now and back in the day in Trenton too. I appreciate everything, my friend.
Yeah, no problem. I've always told you are an example of how hard you have to grind to make it in sports writing, and I've always appreciated both your hustle and your openness. So absolutely no problem, and thanks a lot for having me.
Well, before we turn this into a compliment fest, I'm going to sign off here because I don't want to embarrass myself too much. But thanks again to Danny Burawa for being on, and we're going to cut it to the outro video now. But thanks again to Danny Burawa for being on the 8th episode of the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for episode 8 of the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast with Danny Burawa that I just edited at 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday to make sure I get this out to you guys as quick as possible, because as you guys saw and as you guys heard, there's some really incredible stuff in there, and I'm not just talking about the stuff at the end. And I don't have words for that. Stuff like that means so much. I kind of debated going on a big rant and a big speech about that, but I'll let this kind of speak for itself about how much hearing stuff like that kind of means, and that you had an impact on someone's life and someone's career, and they still remember what I consider to be a small gesture from a while back now. So Danny was great. I think we're gonna have Rob Crowell on as our next guest on episode number 9. So you guys have that to look forward to. We're gonna tape that later today. Which doesn't really matter now if you guys are watching this in the future, which you obviously will be. But thank you guys so much for the support of the podcast and my career in general. Very much so appreciated, especially now with everything that is going on. So on that note, stay safe, stay inside, and wash your damn hands, people. I am Mike Ashmore for the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast, episode 8 with Danny Burawa. Thank you again to Danny for his time, and I will see you guys soon.